Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, wherever you're at in the world. This is Christina, and I am your host here on the Gray State Truth. Today, we're going to be going over the roundtable video that was done on the Injustice Group YouTube channel, and to just kind of show how rumors are started and spread amongst their group of people, how these rabbit holes are made, because each one of them goes off and tells their own little fib, and then that fib gets told by others. So, if you're new here, make sure you guys follow us over on the Crowley Case Fact versus Fiction on Facebook and on YouTube. All of the case information can be found over in the Facebook group, as well as if you have any questions. We are always eager to answer those with the facts and the evidence. You can also check out Deep State Granny on YouTube, and there's some very informative videos over there as well. So we are going to jump in today into this video entitled The David Crowley Discussion. And several people are in this video. William Rail, Sophia, Kathy, Ross, Jamie, Eric, Greg, all of these people pulling themselves together in this video. And just a lot of nonsense. We're waiting on Louise to join, but I'm going to go ahead and start because I know she's doing some stuff with her kiddo right now. So also bear with me in my scratchy voice. I'm dealing with a case of COVID, and so it's been pretty rough the past few days. Anyways, again, make sure you check us out. The Crowley Case Fact versus Fiction, Facebook and YouTube, and Deep State Granny on YouTube as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Hopefully you can hear everything. Let me make sure my sound is on here. Got to make sure that system audio is working. Here we go.
We'll figure a way to go around. I'd like to have everybody answer this question. How would you describe this case to somebody new? That's what I'd like to know from everybody here. Who wants to start first?
It's a conundrum.
It's a conundrum. I mean, let's say you're kind of meeting somebody, you guys are hanging out, just chilling, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, you want to kind of bring up this case. What do you do?
Well, first off, if I'm hanging out with somebody, I'm not going to bring up a case like this, especially if they're kind of clueless about it. And there's nothing odd about it. It's pretty cut and dry, clear case if you read the evidence. If you start out listening to these people, of course, there's going to be questions because you're not getting the correct information. But if you go and you actually read the case files, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, there's no rabbit holes other than the ones that they have made up.
What do you say to people?
I would say the same thing that I said when I came on with you and Dan the first time, Greg, which is it's quite similar to the Kurt Cobain case as far as...
It is nothing like the Kurt Cobain case. Okay? Nothing. Zero, zilch. Nothing. Nothing. We're talking about a rock star with millions and millions and millions of people, as opposed to a guy from Apple Valley making a film. That was it. There was no... It's not even close, okay? Not even close. Like, Point me where the similarities are in that case. There is none. There is no similarities other than they both died from a gunshot wound. That's it. But Kurt Cobain didn't kill his wife and his kid. But there's no similarities other than the way they died. So comparing, if you want to compare that, then it's comparable to many suicides because that's what he did. But to compare it to Kurt Cobain, please, no.
As how evidence was found and the scene of the crime, or the crime scene rather.
Nice.
No, because Kurt was found literally, a day after, a few days after. He was by himself. That was it. There was no animal scavenging. He didn't kill anyone else. Like, this case is not even close to comparable. So to even go there is dumb. It's dumb. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Good one.
All right.
I'd probably say, this case, it's not cut and dry, but this is something we should all be paying attention to because this could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Well, if you're married to someone like that and you believe that it could happen to you, then I suggest you do something about that. The case is cut and dry, and the only rabbit holes, again, are the rabbit holes that you create.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think if you're going to speak to somebody new, like for this case, trying to keep it as basic as possible because there's so much that's involved in this. There's no answer to this question. If we can show them snippets of what David Crowley was doing, that he was trying to produce a movie and saying that the new revolution would never been televised. We can show them that and then take the next step forward further by saying, okay, at once upon a time, 3 members of one family got killed. Here's the proof, here's the evidence, and let's go from there.
But where is the proof and the evidence, Jamie? That's the question. Where is your proof and your evidence that he's innocent? That's the question. You don't have any. Greg doesn't have it. Dan doesn't have it. Nobody has it. Where's the proof of his innocence? That's the biggest question that none of them can answer. They can't answer if there was DNA that belonged to someone else in the house. Where is it? I've asked this question many, many, many times, and they can't answer it. So you can keep it as simple as you want. But to mention, oh, well, he was making this movie and, calling out this new world order and blah, blah, blah. Well, show them the post where David says, he was unsubscribing from those groups. The NWO and all of those conspiracy groups, he was unsubscribing from. Because probably he himself was seeing how ridiculous it was. And the amount of just nonsense that there was when it comes to these conspiracy things. And that's the thing that they're not understanding. They have all of this stuff online, these conspiracies regarding this case, but David was unsubscribing from these conspiracy groups. And so, it leaves you to wonder, was he playing y'all for fools? Because it's kind of what it sounds like, with the voice recordings and the videos and things like that. He was unsubscribing from these groups and trying to distance himself away from that. And in fact, I haven't read the script for myself, but I heard that the original trailer and the ultimate outcome, the last script that was done, was completely different from, the trailer from when it started. And it was a completely different, road that he had went down. And so was he trying to move away from the conspiracy part of it is kind of the question here that they're not seeing. Again, I haven't read the script, so I can't really comment on or about that. I don't look at this case when it comes to talking about the film, or because it doesn't have anything to do with it. It does in a sense because of what he was doing with his life, or what he was doing in his life, or what was consuming his life. But there was a lot more to this than just, Gray State. There's a lot more to it than just this.
But there's a lot more to it. It's a journey. Where can you start? I'll just say, just give them just the snippet of what David Crowley was trying to do.
You can't just give someone a snippet of what he was trying to do, because there's more to it than that. There's more to his life than that. The journals, his inside life, his relationship, like those types of things. You can't just here. I'm gonna throw a snippet out what he was doing. Now you can take it or leave it. That's not how it works.
By New World Order, and obviously combine that with what's going on with today's society as well, because he did, hindsight, predict what was coming.
No, he did not. He did not predict anything. These are things that were going on at the time that he was making these scripts, okay? These are things that have been happening all over the world. We had back then, there's been pandemics before COVID-19. There's been pandemics, there's been, government stuff going on since way before David was even born, okay? So to say that he was going to show something that someone else wasn't, that's a lie. Because a lot of David's stuff came from other people online. I mean, of course, he had his own experiences in life and being in the military, but a lot of the things that he was talking about was things that people were already talking about. Alex Jones, he went to several protests, because these were things that people were already talking about, not something he predicted was going to happen. I mean, there's videos of him at protests, getting footage. There's videos of him talking to Alex Jones and things like that, because these things were already going on. This isn't something that he predicted was going to happen. It's just, there's videos on YouTube of similar films that were made, and they're, the directors and the owners of these scripts, they're still alive. Nothing's happened to them. So, to say that, this film was so special in a sense that it was going to give, information that wasn't out there, that's bullshit. It's all conspiracy. Anything that revolves around this film and discussing it, he knew what would drive the conspiracy crowd. He knew that conspiracy theorists talked about the Masons and the Illuminati and all this other stuff, and so he included that in the trailer because he knew that's what would sell. You have to have some sort of knowledge of how people think, conspiracy people, and to say, I'm going to put this in the film because I know it's going to sell, because people talk about the Masons and how the Masons are so bad and how they've done this and how they've done that. And so he's, of course, going to insert some type of clue into that trailer to try to make it sell. You know, it's a business. It's a business.
Good point.
Sophia, what are your thoughts?
I agree with keeping it as simple as possible because there's so many different rabbit holes with this case. And
But to be fair, Sophia, you're one of the reasons that these rabbit holes exist and these lies exist because you have put things out there that are incorrect. You have put misinformation out there along with everyone else over there.
I don't know what else. Just keeping it as simple as possible.
And that means
Normally, I just don't bring it up in the
Right.
conversation because it's so complicated.
yeah.
So,
So do you keep it simple? Keep it to just like hey, they found him, and what they, the little strange things about it. That he's a
yeah.
soldier. Is that really relevant? That he's a soldier, a filmmaker, his 2012 trailer, some of those basic things like that.
And then I start referring people to like the documents in the group because you need to read those to really understand the case. Watching the documentary does not help you with this case. So you just throw out everything that you saw in that thing.
But why? Why would you throw everything you saw in that out when it shows, his state of mind? It shows things that he was thinking, things that he was saying, how he was putting the film together. It also shows the feelings of the family and friends and, what they dealt with or how they seen David or, things that they saw leading up to, the incident. Like, why would you throw that out? And I actually understand why you would throw it out because it shows the decline. His mental health, it shows the decline. And it coincides, it clicks perfectly with the journals and with this whole situation. And that's why you don't agree with it because it doesn't fit your narrative of what happened. It doesn't sit with your narrative.
And just go straight to the document and start looking at that. That's what I try to tell people. It's like, just forget everything you saw in the documentary. You've lied to. And
what was a lie in the documentary, though? You're not pointing that out. Where's the lie in the documentary? Where is the lie? There's no lies in there. There's the evidence. There's videos that David made. There's people there that knew David, that lived with David, that was around David. Unlike you guys who claim to know everything about this man, but you've never even met him, never even crossed paths with him. And that's why you don't like it, because it doesn't fit your narrative. It doesn't fit your storyline.
read the documents because that tells a different story.
No, it doesn't. What is different with the documents than with the documentary? I mean, it shows everything in there, plus some. The moral part of it, or, you have the documents, which are the legal, professional parts of the investigation. And then you have the documentary, which is more of a in-depth look as far as feelings and emotions and the family side of it, or the friends side of it, and the way that they seen him, or the way that David felt. It's that's what it is. That's why you don't like it, because it doesn't fit or agree with your storyline.
Yeah, throw out everything in that thing for sure. For sure.
Hmm.
Well, see, I'll still
90
watch a
minutes.
documentary once I know that they're a critical thinker, because then they can actually go through this and actually break things down. Okay, well, this doesn't seem right. Like, I mean, I went through my first time and I saw it. I was like, this isn't making any sense. This doesn't add up here.
Hmm.
Go through the
Yeah.
the documents, and then you see it even more clear. So
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Or when somebody comes into the group and they're like, well, the documentary said this. And it's like, no, they're wrong.
Well, the documentary said what? But you're not saying what the documentary said that is wrong. You're just saying that somebody said the documentary said this, and you're like, nope, they're wrong. What are they wrong about? Instead of doing that, what you just did, Sophia, explain what is wrong. What did they say that was wrong? That's things that you guys don't do. You literally, that's how you play this. It's your opinion. And they're wrong, but I'm not going to tell you what they're wrong about.
The dog had food. There was food there.
mhm.
There's things like that. But
What? So somebody came into the group and said that there was no dog food there. Well, there was dog food there. We know that there's bags of dog food, but nowhere in the documentary does it even talk about dog food. So I'm kind of confused what you're saying. You're saying that someone came into the group and said that this is what the documentary said, and you said, no, they're wrong. And then you say that they said that that something about the dog food. Well, funny thing is they don't even mention the dog food in the documentary. So that's a lie, Sophia. And this is clearly the stuff that needs to be pointed out with you guys, because nowhere in that documentary do they talk about dog food. Nowhere. And I've watched it several times, and I don't remember a spot in there that said anything about dog food. So if you can point that out, I mean, I would love to see where it talked about there not being dog food. Maybe I skipped over that, but I clearly don't remember anything to that effect. And so,
like you were saying,
But like many people that've been looking into this case, only one thing that should be done. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know who's going to do it, but the case just needs to be reinvestigated.
okay. It's been 7 years, Jamie. And nothing that the Justice Group has brought towards Apple Valley has warranted them to reopen this case. Now, Kathy, who is 100%, and this is the funny part, back when she was called out about it, she said clearly that she wasn't sure when it came to the multiple blunt force trauma. Okay, and she said that in a comment under a video. And she's like, we've asked her, if this could have gotten the case reopened, then why did you not have your friends go forward and talk about this? These corner friends that you have that have a legal obligation, why have they not went forward because that would have been your surefire way to get it reopened. And Kathy's comment, and I do have the screenshot of it, I just have to find it, stated that she wasn't sure that couldn't be done because she wasn't sure. But she was so sure enough that she sent an email to Apple Valley Police Department stating this, saying that there was multiple blunt force trauma and pointing these marks out on the skull piece, and saying that the skull piece was cut. She says this literally in almost every video that she makes, talking about this multiple blunt force trauma. But when she's asked why her coroner friends, who have this legal obligation to go to the police and say, hey, I see this, never went forward, she says that it's because she wasn't so sure that was it. So for somebody that's not so sure about these things, why do you put it out there so matter-of-factly? And this is one of the things that I'm talking about. Let me pull this video up here so y'all can see it, because this is what I'm talking about here when it comes to her saying, it's 100% multiple blunt force trauma and putting these people's names out there and this and that, but yet she didn't. These corner buddies that she has, like, they never ever went forward and even said anything. So I'm gonna put this video on so you guys can see it and hear what Kathy talks about when it comes to this multiple blunt force trauma, because she'll tell you in a comment that she is not sure, and that's why the corner people never went forward. But yet you can see in this video that's a lie. She's like hell bent on that's her smoking gun. Hi, Louise.
Hiya.
All right, so we are. I just started not too long ago, and we're talking about just kind of different things with Kathy, and I'm gonna play this video of the post I posted with Kathy the other day.
Okay.
I didn't read it, so sorry. Again, not prepared. But the one thing I did want to tell everybody is that it seems now that these three, Sean Wright, Danny August Mason, and Dan Sr., David's father, his father, wanted to know why nobody gave a shit about David being slaughtered in his own home. The proof that there's multiple blunt force trauma in his head and that his skull piece was cut off doesn't flipping matter to these people. You know why? Because every last one of them are trying to get the copyrights to the script.
Now, does that sound like somebody that isn't sure? Or does that sound like somebody that is matter of fact, there's proof to this, and I know it? And if there was proof, they literally could have gotten the corner buddy, her corner friends, to get the case reopened.
Yeah, if she believes she's got the proof of motive, I mean, to me, it just looks like somebody who's kind of losing a grip.
I didn't play
I'm trying to not be horrible.
Yeah.
It's like she's clearly, she's angry in that clip, but it's hard to actually work out why she's angry, because if you look into the legal side of things, there's nothing illegal that's happened.
Right.
Everything that has happened with the copyright has all been done legitimately through the Copyright Office, and I'm pretty sure the Copyright Office know the laws in which their whole job works around.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, Jamie is here saying that the case needs to be reopened. Like they need to reopen the case. And that's why I was kind of bringing that up because, you know, Kathy is so matter of fact about this multiple blunt force trauma and, you know, could have had her corner friends to come forward because there's, you know, there's clear proof of this, so she says, but yet they never did. Like she's the only one that's ever mentioned this, and even going as far as sending Apple Valley an email, you know, claiming this, and they were probably sitting there like, God, this woman has lost her marbles. But
well, if like, this is the thing, and I'm trying to sort of not be personal about anything or anyone. I'm trying to be on my best behaviour. It might be hard, and I can't guarantee I'm going to succeed, but I'm going to try.
I'm there with
but
you.
The facts are, it's like, even if we found something, you've got to get that verified by a professional. Because that professional is the person who the weight is behind. So we could say we're 99.9999999% certain that, I don't know, we'll just say hypothetically we're agreeing with a multiple blunt force trauma. If we were thinking, yes, that is multiple blunt force trauma, us going and saying, Detective Gummert, we think we found multiple blunt force trauma, that's not going to do anything.
Right.
But if we was to go, you know, Detective Gummert gets a letter or an email out of nowhere from a coroner or a medical examiner, I don't know, in top of the head, Tennessee, who said someone contacted me about this case and they asked me to look at the evidence available, and I've been doing some research, yada yada yada, and I have concerns that what is being claimed to be this is something different, and here's some references, and this is what I have to do legally as my role as a coroner, is to approach you and say whatever and do whatever, then that would hold a lot more weight in getting any official capacity to take seriously a claim that there's foul play or that overlooked evidence or something. But just having some random off the street going, you know, you've missed this, and I know for a fact that this is this, and yeah, I know that you actually had like the bones in your hands and you were present at the autopsy, but I'm just telling you now, you're wrong, and if you don't agree with me, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's what Kathy isn't even stepping up and saying in these videos when people say, oh, well, we need to get the case reopened. Well, Kathy, you had a chance. And the question is, why didn't your corner buddies, who you were so matter of fact and you have all this proof, why didn't they go forward? Why are you not telling these, you know, Jamie and the other people that are on this live, you know, I have this evidence, or I have a professional that's, you know, willing to say something. But then you turn around and say, oh, well, I can't say that because I'm not sure. But then you make videos and you dox people and put people's names out there saying that they don't give an F about this person that was slaughtered in their house. You know,
Well, yeah,
ridiculous.
I mean, like, because according to them, they have this whole long list of inconsistencies that what they believe to be inconsistencies, which they believe proves foul play.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence other than their opinion because they don't want to believe that David could do something like this. But it's like, do you really think that David and Kamel's family just went, okay, yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me. They wouldn't have wanted to have believed it. You know, it would have taken them a heck of a lot to be able to sort of go, well, actually, you know, the evidence does, and we know this about David, and we know that he could be like this sometimes, and you know, we thought you had a bit of an issue with this kind of, you know, whatever. No
Yeah.
one just automatically wants to accept that their brother, sister, child, mother, father, you know, any close relative
Yeah.
or anyone that they know is capable of doing such a horrific thing. But
Absolutely.
it happens.
Yeah, it does. And there's plenty of cases to prove that. You know, we've said that in the past. You have Chris Watts, you know, this nobody, you know, there's a clear cut dry case that shows, you know, that Chris Watts never showed any signs of depression. Wasn't in the military, didn't really have any PTSD or any type of issues, you know. And this guy just often cheats on his wife, you know, and then the wife and the two kids are dead. And the way he does it is, you know, he throws his pregnant wife in a hole and then stuffs his two little girls in some oil tanks, you know. Nobody saw that coming, but it happens, you know. Casey Anthony, of course, she was ruled not guilty. I don't know how, but, you know, 31 days, this chick, you know, didn't report her kid missing. I know if my kid's missing for 2 seconds, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
But 31 days, you know, and her kid is missing, and she had a straight face, you know, was out at the bars dancing and living it up, you know, while her kid is, you know, rotting in a field somewhere. It happens, even though we don't want to believe it. It happens. You have the mother who had postpartum depression, and her and her husband got into that church cult, and she ended up drowning her kids in the bathtub one by one.
Yeah.
You know, then you have the other lady who drove her car into the ocean. You know, it's so many things that you would never see coming. But there's people like that, and David was no different. In fact, he had clear-cut signs of, you know, things going on. And his friends even said, you know, he looked like shit coming up to those days. He had lost a lot of weight. His eyes were sunken in. And what happens when you get depressed? You know, you stop taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody around. You close yourself off from the world, and that's how it is. And so maybe they've never dealt with depression. I'm not going to say that they haven't, because it's, you know, I don't know them. And I'm not saying that they haven't, but, you know, when it comes to statistics and what people do when they're depressed, they usually withdraw, and they usually stop taking care of themselves. And in this case, that's, you know, it's clear. It's 100% clear. So, all right, let's listen.
From top to bottom. I mean, there had been some rumors about, it could be going down that road again, but to get the doubt out of people's mind that somebody else could have done this, or so forth. The whole investigation of this murder, I'm going to call it a murder anyway, it needs to be reinvestigated from top to bottom. Now, the only problem with that is that some of the scenes inside the house has been reconstructed since the event.
So, first
it's been
off,
remodeled, hasn't it? The house, it's been remodeled.
Yeah. The thing is, like, why would they need to reinvestigate this? First off, and second off, why would they need to go back into the house? They have pictures of everything. You know, there's pictures of literally everything.
And measurements.
What really would they need to do? I mean,
well, I mean, like, people keep saying, like, you know, Apple Valley did a crap investigation, yada yada yada, but it's like, Apple Valley didn't do the investigation on their own, though. Apple Valley did an investigation, BCA did an investigation, the medical examiners were involved, the Dakota County Electronic Crimes were involved. So you've got like 4 different agencies that we like know of off the top of our head who are involved. They can't all be corrupt. Not every single person can be corrupt. Yes, they've made like errors, but they've learnt from those errors. The error of not looking up at the ceiling. But then, if you've got common sense, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but it's like when you get swept up in the motions of everything, it's easy to sit back and go, well, they should have done this and they should have done that. But
Well,
if you've ever had your house trashed, or if your dog's had diarrhea in the night and vomited and it's all over the floor and everything, you're not looking at the ceiling to see whether he sprayed the ceiling. You're looking at the floor going, I hope I don't stand in it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. These small things, that they accidentally miss because people are human and you have human error, they're not going to, those small things are not going to change the outcome. The ultimate outcome of this case is, and that's what it is, and that's what the evidence shows. And even with those small details that were, a human error and were missed by accident, it still doesn't change the outcome of the case. Even if they would have done them right, you still would have had the same outcome. And so it's pointless to, here, let's put a bunch more money back into this case when we know it's going to come out exactly the same way that it's always came out, because the main evidence and what is important in the case is right there, So
exactly.
It's going to be a little bit harder to investigate properly and thoroughly the things that they didn't do properly. But we know this, law officials have always been corrupted inside their own police force. They don't do their job properly. They just want to brush over it like they can sweep it under the carpet. But we got photographs. We got police video. We got the 911 call. Yeah, I'm going.
And if they wanted to sweep it under the carpet, do you think that the photos, the reports, the calls, any of that would be released? They would just keep the case open, and then they don't have any. What's the word I'm looking for? They don't have any legal duty, responsibility to release any of that information whilst the case is still active and ongoing. So if it was a cover-up of anything, they would just be saying, sorry, case is still active, we can't release any information at this time. And you'd never get the photos, you'd never get the videos, you'd never get the reports, you'd never get anything.
Or they could have had the case sealed because there's a minor involved, So they didn't have to give out that information. And if they were going to, hide things, then that would be clear. Okay, we're not going to give this information out because there was a minor involved. But they did. So, that kind of proves their corruption theory out the window.
Yep.
On one call too. We've got all this. We've got all this evidence. But now, I really believe if it's still an open case, like it has been.
It's not open. It's closed, exceptionally cleared.
Yeah, that's what I was listening to the other day when he said that the case was open. And I'm like, what? So we have. Let me pull up what I posted earlier. The paper here, the last paper, page 92 of the document, or of the documents, and it says, with the conclusion of the review of the digital devices, there is no other information available for further investigation. Throughout this investigation, the Apple Valley Police Department has not discovered any information or evidence that shows anybody but David Crowley is the perpetrator of these crimes, including the killing of his wife, child, and himself. Status, exceptionally cleared. And that means closed.
Yeah.
They can't take him to trial. They can't send him to jail. They can't do anything. And so it's cleared. He's not cleared of the crime. They just can't convict him of the crime. So, but there's nowhere in here does it say that it's still open. It says that nothing that they've gotten shows anybody else did anything except for David. That's it.
Mm.
So it's not open, Jamie. I don't know where you got that info, but it's not an open case.
No.
Read the documents.
Got to go through it all over again to get the dead out of people's mind and stop all these bickering and fighting of all these doubters as well. So, you know, just redo it. But
the other
the
doubters.
question I want to ask is: has
Exactly.
there definitely been a gag order on certain people that can't speak up? If so, well, yeah.
Well, I want to go back to what you were asking, Greg, and you wanted us all to answer, and how I always view this case and tell other people, if the sane believe half of what you see and none of what you hear was ever applicable, it applies to this case. Don't believe half of the things you see, and definitely don't believe anything you hear from anybody who's associated with it, because most of it, as we know, is
So basically,
geared
listen to
toward
them.
leaning.
Don't read the reports. Don't look at any of the documents or the photos, because it's all a cover-up. So you can't take any of it as fact, but listen to them.
Yeah, don't
they
listen
never
to the
knew
family,
anybody.
the
Yeah.
friends. Don't listen to the friends and the family who knew them personally and knew their life and things that were going on. Like, make sure you listen to Kathy there, who knows David and is like his best friend in the whole world.
Yeah.
People and pointing them all in the wrong direction. So
Fact.
Absolutely agree on that one.
How about Mr. Eric Spitfire Wilkinson?
Oh
You can
God,
hear
this
us out
guy's
there.
clueless.
How are you, my friend?
Are we going to get deafened?
Oh God,
Whoa, coming through.
was that his microphone?
It's his
Jesus.
microphone. Greg does get him to adjust it in a little bit, but yeah.
God, that's bad.
Prepared for a bit of a kazoo moment.
Uh,
We're a little hot and heavy as usual. That's the Spitfire spitting through the microphone there.
Good comments so far. My question's always been,
That's a little better.
why has nobody picked up the ball and run with it in regards to this movie? And I think the answer is, it's kind of a rhetorical question, because what happened with David Crowley and his family scared the hell out of a lot of people.
Mhm.
And nobody ever wants to touch a subject like this, especially the amount of truth that we were seeing in this movie. There's a reason why this happened. So I'm still crossing my fingers that somebody is going to be courageous enough and they have the resources, because it does take a lot of money to make a movie like that, pick up the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you if you had Eric, if you had a chance to just chat with somebody to kind of like introduce them to this case, what would be some of the things that you would focus on?
Well, I'd start with the fact that we're talking about in my opinion, a war hero,
Mhm.
a veteran, his wife, and especially the small child that was murdered here. And I do say murdered with all my heart and all my conviction.
Well, she was
All the
murdered
evidence
by her
out there.
father.
yeah.
I was covered up. For somebody who's never seen it yet, this guy was making an amazing movie that showing
Trailer.
more truth than any movie that I've seen.
Yeah.
Theaters, and he was very close to achieving this goal. He had the investors lined up. He had contracts lined up, and
Just pause it a
Suddenly,
second, Christina.
There you go.
Thank you. See, so this is where Justice and Ross need to make some actual statement, because Ross is saying there's a movie that was made.
Yeah.
Eric's saying there wasn't a movie. Greg's saying there wasn't a movie, there was a trailer, and he was in talks. So they're all telling slightly different tales of the same situation.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to add.
That's the problem. Like they've all put some kind of story out there that doesn't mix with someone else's. And that's why all these little rabbit holes exist, because they all have their own little story to tell, and none of them are true.
Yeah.
So it's it's pretty weird.
He went crazy, according to the narrative, official narrative, and killed himself. His image has just been completely tarnished now. To those who want to believe the official narrative, even his friends were saying, going along with it, and there's something we have to look at here with this. Again, for people, again, I'm kind of getting off track because for people who haven't heard this, but he was about to make a movie that was going to blow people's minds. The truth of it, the surveillance part of it, and what's coming and what we're seeing right now was in his script, a lot of it, including this pandemic. And so if people are wanting to look in this further and see what's going on, I definitely recommend getting Greg Fernandez's book, The Gray Stage. It lays it out spectacularly, what we saw here in that book. And
Fictionally.
just go to YouTube, look up Gray State, watch the trailer. That pretty much tells you the whole story of what he was going to put out. And
Well, it's not true, because isn't the last script completely different from the trailer that was originally put out? Like,
Yeah.
the storyline itself is very different from what he originally had planned on doing. I
Yeah.
haven't seen him and I haven't read him, but I know from what I've heard that he went down a completely different road with what the trailer was. And so,
Yeah.
like for him, for Eric to say here, the trailer that was made, and that's the kind of movie that he was going to make, and what he was trying to call out, when they were two different things. The storyline went down a different path.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering if anybody on the panel has seen a movie that's even, come close to the truth this was going to expose.
there's several movies out that were very similar, if not exactly the same, to what David was doing. You have many movies that have called out, the New World Order, or the
Corruption of
police
the
state
powers that
taking
be.
over.
And,
Yeah. There's a lot of movies that have came out. So
I mean, Greg goes and films outside Bohemian Grove, so even if he included something of Bohemian Grove, it's not like people aren't covering Bohemian Grove and all these other
yeah.
things. David just took them and thought, I'll put them into a work of fiction, and or use an idea that stems from the fear of all of that and the secrecy, and make it into something to sell.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier. It's a business. David knew what would sell. He knows that conspiracy theorists talk about the Masons and being corrupt, and the police being corrupt, and so he took that knowledge and he stuck it in a trailer.
Yeah,
because he knew that it was going to sell. It's a business, and David Crowley even said that himself. I have this thing in my head, and I'm going to put it out there, and people are going to pay me to do it.
Yeah.
So
That's a great
There's a few
question.
movies out there like mainstream that they were exposing quite a bit. I mean, there's Eyes Wide Shut that also exposed some stuff that was going on. Well,
he
that's still
wasn't
going on.
exposing anything that wasn't already
A lot of
exposed.
symbolism in that movie, certainly. But David
Trailer.
was just putting it right there in your face.
Oh, yeah. He was very blunt with it, while Kubrick was just like, okay, well, we'll use the symbolism, we'll go and give off some scenarios here, but we're not going to give off the whole thing. So I get what you're saying, though.
Right, for sure.
There's still a movie I want to see called Captive State. I don't know how relevant it is or how similar it is to this whole David Crowley thing. It seems like it's really not, but I'm just curious about it. That name. I was looking up last night some of the names. Like, why would David name this Gray State? What did he really mean? It's a common question I get all the time about, what did David mean? Like, why is this called gray state? What is the gray state? What does David Crowley consider
Don't you think the
the
best thing to
gray
do
state?
would
And I
be to
love that.
contact somebody who was involved in grey state and ask them what grey state was, rather than have Greg try and speculate what he interprets
Yeah.
grey state to mean? You can't speak
Yeah.
for David and say it meant this. Or you
Yeah.
can check out our video with an interview that he did with somebody where he talks about it.
Yeah. And there's several times that David, he says a gray state is this, or, this is what it is, and this is what it's about. And so
It's
I don't
already
know if
out
they
there
haven't
to find.
Yeah.
Just go to the Grey State movie channel.
Yeah, and that was his opinion. That's what he seen the gray state as being, and he talks about it in interviews, and it's also, it's out there. So if you really investigated this, Greg, then you would know that.
Title, because the more I think about it, the more he kind of keeps it open for all of us to kind of make our own interpretation of what we think the gray state
That's good
is,
business.
instead of
That's the that's the selling point.
Yeah.
we could say, to me, it's like it's not black and white. It's a police state, but it's like I don't know. It's somewhere in the middle, where it's like you have good cops, you have bad cops, you have good soldiers, you have bad soldiers. You have this, like, everything is just thrown into this state, and then all this chaos happens, all this criminal corruption on top of criminal corruption in a post-pandemic type world is really what it seems like too.
Dystopian.
And just things just get nuts. Both scripts that I've read of David's, it's just like everything.
Do they believe that coronavirus is literally the only pandemic that people have had in this world? I mean, they're forgetting Ebola. They're forgetting all these other pandemics we had in the past, like the ones, I think there was one back in like 2009. I can't remember what it was called.
Was it a SARS one?
SARS, yes. I mean, we have several different pandemics that have happened, over the years. And what,
the plague, the Black Death, all sorts of things from, a long time ago. Pandemics have wiped out
so they're saying
populations.
that David predicted, the COVID pandemic and the things that were happening after the COVID pandemic. Like, there's other pandemics, and he didn't predict it. He's seen what happened after other pandemics.
Yeah.
And these are things that have been going on in the world for ages, not just something that, happened after COVID. You have, people that have been fighting in other countries and, protests all over the world way before COVID even existed. So he didn't predict anything.
No.
Is completely it starts out in chaos. The 2013 maybe a little bit more, but they both really start out in this chaotic world where something has happened, some type of false flag thing has happened that has triggered the whole world to kind of, or at least the USA, to go into this quote unquote gray state. And it kind of seems like anyone could look at what's happening in their country right now, and you may be living in a version of the gray state. It's pretty trippy.
And it's interesting because I say it the exact opposite. I look at the title and read the script, and I think of the term of gray state like you think of a gray man or being a gray rock. That's somebody something that just kind of
Oh God, like that rock in your head. Like
blends in. So the constant changes here and there just blended in and just kind of went with the flow, and nobody really paid attention to it, because you don't pay attention to a gray rock, you don't pay attention to the gray man. And then
if I saw a gray man, I would be paying attention.
Okay.
Might not be paying attention to a gray rock, but I would if I saw a gray man. Are you anemic?
That gray state to occur, and then the movie then shows the result of allowing a gray state to be. That's how I saw it.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I see
David
it a little
said,
bit
though,
of both
didn't
of
he,
the,
that about
of
if
what
you are
Catherine said.
like
Most of them what
paying
Catherine-
attention to the sort of smaller things, that smaller changes,
Right.
and you know, it's like Nazi Germany didn't just become Nazi Germany overnight. It was
Yeah.
small
over
and
time.
gradual over time. And if you don't pay attention and sort of see certain things for what they could turn to, then that's
Yeah.
where you can find yourself in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, same way in United States too. The crap that we're dealing with now didn't just happen overnight. It's gradually happened over, hundreds and hundreds of years and different presidents and,
Yeah.
different, like, I don't think that I've ever seen United States so divided, ever,
Mm.
but over the past, few decades and few presidencies that we've had, it becomes more and more divided because you find presidents that aren't for the people, but they're
Yeah.
for their party. So,
Yeah.
and that's over years
Yeah.
and years of, politicians thinking of themselves. And that's
Yeah.
why I won't lean towards Republican or Democrat. I'm independent. And I don't like either side of politicians. So
Yeah.
some things I agree with, some things I don't. On both sides, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to follow a party. I have one life to live. My
Yeah.
kids have one life to live, and I'm not going to spend, my existence worrying about what those people are doing.
Yeah.
So, but some people do. Some people, they put their existence and their life into following a party or, worshiping a party or, supporting a party because they think it's going to change something. And in reality, these people are for themselves. They've always
Yeah.
been for themselves. They're not for, the people or, what they can do for the people. You may find a few out there that are like that, but
Yeah.
most of the time they get caught up in the corruption and they
Yeah.
get caught up in the money and the fame. And
That's it.
so, yeah.
I understand, but I see what Greg's saying too, and I definitely agree. There's what he's saying about it. It's
See, in my personal life, people, I see everything black and white. I don't sit in the fence, but with the grey state, there's a lot of grey areas in society, whether it's a police force, government, and it comes down to people. But there's more to it than that. We know there's corruption. We know there's going to be turmoil. We just didn't know it yet back in 2013. But if you go a year before the Grey State or David Crowley, there was a little preview, a 12-minute preview from the London 20 Olympic Games, the opening ceremony. That was on a global stage, and they were demonstrating what was about to come. Now, when it comes to the Grey State, it even went a little bit further. Like David was showing the people that, hey, you are going to have microchips. You are going to be programmed. You only have,
But nobody's been programmed or microchipped.
No.
So, I mean, saying that he's predicting something that's not happened and will never happen, because you have people that get vaccinated, and then you have your other people that don't get vaccinated. So
Yeah.
you're going to be able to tell a big difference of somebody's microchipped as opposed to those who don't.
Yeah.
You can't. You would have to have everybody, being vaccinated in order to even be able to microchip someone.
Yeah.
That's like animals, animals really don't have a say so. We can microchip them to find out where their owner is, because they don't have voices to say, hey, I got a microchip in my neck,
Yeah.
But people talk, okay? People have a brain and they can communicate things that are happening. And so it's a big difference between microchipping human beings and, it's just, I
Yeah.
don't believe in any of that.
I mean,
crap.
there is a company that I don't know if they're in like Switzerland or somewhere like that, and they've like put chips in their employers' hands. But I mean, I believe it was voluntary.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think, like if you're trying to sell it on you can open doors without having to take keys, and you can do this, and you can pay money without having to. It's like, well, if
Yeah.
you've got such an issue with carrying a blooming card around with you, then we're doomed. But I don't think that the general person is going to go, yes, I'm all for being chipped. It's never been
Yeah.
put forward as something, and if they did put it forward as a plan to do for everyone, there would be outcry.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's kind of what I was saying about, you have the majority of people who are going to say, no, I don't want this.
Yeah.
But then you're going to have some people that are like, oh yeah, if it makes life easier, sure, why not? But you still have people that aren't going to allow that.
Yeah.
And if it became a mandatory thing, then you're going to have, like you said, you're going to have people speaking out against it, and
yeah,
we just don't have that. You have your voluntary people who do it. That's about it.
Yeah.
Food stamps to get your food, but you have to go through this different maze or whatever you want to call it to survive. And this is what it was all about. It was about survival. Imagine if the world would turn upside down. There's chaos everywhere. It was a battle of survival. Mm-hmm. And we are facing that in today's society, that we need to survive. Food is running low. Fuel is running down. Well, most importantly, the fuel prices are going through the roof. We're facing this. And David was trying to expose that before the event actually even happened.
The gas prices are no different than what they have been. I mean, they go up a dollar or two, or then they go back down, and then they go up and they go down. It's fluctuation. It's what is it? The supply and demand.
Mm.
You have more of a demand, but whatever country is, that we're dealing with at the time, and wherever, people get their oil and stuff from. Same thing with food. You have stuff that's going on in California. A lot of the vegetables and things come from California or different areas, but then you have, too much rain or too much heat, the fires and stuff that affects, the food growth and things. So has nothing to do with prediction of anything. It's supply and demand. You have more people on this earth than before.
Yeah.
So of course the supply is going to go down, the demand for it is going to go up, and so the prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
That's not a prediction. That is, it's part of humanity.
It's a fictional story or semi-non-fictional story. Well, we can now say it's non-fiction. If you want to look back at that little movie preview that he was doing, right? Even though it's a little bit more into it, but if you want to say that, you can say now, looking in hindsight in 2022, it's non-fictional. The ship has sailed now.
No.
So, if people are still sitting on the fence with the quote-unquote pandemic now, well, you have complied. I think that sitting on the fence grey area, trying to figure out just to get along, yeah, it's a different thing in my book. I'm not a bench warmer. That's just me. That's just me.
Yeah, you don't seem like a bench warmer for sure. And that's what this world needs. We have enough bench warmers, I think, here. So
Dang,
yeah.
did he just call them? We have enough bench warmers. So yes, you do, Greg. You sure do.
It's always good to have you guys on. I just looked up what is the gray state, and first some propaganda came up, but then I don't know what this means. It says gray state or gray state, dying as in DYE, or fabric, a fabric or a material not yet dyed. So something
What is that? Oh Lord, what does that have to do with anything?
to do with like color, dyeing a fabric,
Ray,
dyeing.
be careful,
That's just
buddy.
weird. Anyways,
You okay?
way
Yeah,
off.
he very well could have used it something like
Well,
this.
I don't know. I don't know. Go ahead.
look at the Webster dictionary for what gray means,
Hmm.
because it not only says like neutral colors or something that's in between a color, but
Technically,
they're
black and
talking
white
about
aren't even colours.
gloomy, dull, and stuff like that.
Well,
And
well, sorry
you know,
to
like
cut you off, but we're on a good topic. But black and white is not a color; it's a shade. And same as grey, it's a shade. It's not actually a color. It's in between the black and the white. So, yeah, I do see things black and white, but there's no right or wrong when I look at that. You know, I look at both sides of the narrative. What's the good side? What's the bad side? But there's something I want to bring up too.
So it's literally right here. The full definition of gray. Of course, you have, the clothed in gray, the hair gray, or whatever. The other one is lacking cheer or brightness in mood, outlook, style, or flavor. Dismal or gloomy. A gray state. A gloomy state.
Yeah,
A bad outlook.
yeah.
Dull. Uninteresting. The boring gray dullness of the government.
There you
I
go.
mean, it's not just a grey state. I mean, I know there's shades of grey as well. That other movie, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about. But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
50 Shades of Grey.
White, grey. It's not a color. It's all a shade.
That's weird. I always thought it was a color. I'm gonna
No,
go
black
back
and white
to
are
my.
not colours.
I'm going back to my teacher, and I'm gonna tell them they really messed me up.
and that's what's frustrating is because the dictionary is saying the color gray, the color black, the color white,
Yeah.
but they're not really colors.
Yeah, they're not
What's-
colours. You learn that in art school.
What's
So
up with
Jamie's
that?
right. But here's
Oh boy, she went to art school too, Louise. She's an artist. This one time at art school, we drew a tree.
We learn about black and white.
It was gray, like that rock over there.
And that man.
Here's the thing, though, with David. It's like whenever he did something, how I see him is he does everything in layers. And it's the same thing with this title.
Onions have layers. That's all I can think about when she said that he does everything in layers. I start thinking about the Shrek movie when he talks about onions have layers.
There are so many different ways you can interpret what a gray state means, and you would probably be right with every single one because every aspect is covered in the script. It's just amazing.
Right. Yeah, I can't
And
hear
the gray
that.
man,
That's for sure.
too.
I equate gray state with another state, which goes perfectly by the definition, police state.
Police
What
state.
exactly is a police state?
Yeah.
And this is where government institutions exercise an extreme level of control over civil liberties and society, which is what we're seeing right now. There's typical literal distinction between the law
Step
and the
away from the mic.
Jesus, he's like eating the damn
Yeah.
exercise of political power by the executive, and the deployment of internal security and police forces play a heightened role in governance. A police state is a characteristic of authoritarian, totalitarianism, and illiberal regimes, contrary to liberal democratic regimes. And that's a gray state in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Is a police state.
That's kind of what I always thought. Maybe that's what David meant. And I think looking at his trailer, his 2012 trailer, that's kind of what I thought. And reading the script too, it kind of falls in line with that whole police state thing. But it seems like there was, there's people on both sides. I guess is kind of what I found. A lot of like ex-soldiers some of the patriots, are some of the with the protagonists in his scripts. It felt like, you know, and there was a lot of that. The main character in the 2014 script he works for the cop. He is a cop when this whole thing happens, and then he gets framed. So it's pretty interesting, just that name. But yeah, I always kind of associated it with Police State and the Police State movies, and the research, you know, back then was like, and here we kind of are, because I never thought they'd be knocking down doors in this country, in any country, kicking down doors. Even though they were doing it at the time, David was doing it. All of our soldiers were over there fighting two fake wars, two really, you know, corrupt wars, and knocking down doors, taking people's guns, only letting them have one gun, finding caches of guns in their backyard, shooting people, and just all this craziness here. And I don't know. I always thought that it would never come here, that we would never get to that point. I mean, nobody's knocking down my door now, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
That doesn't mean that it's gonna happen. And
No.
so they keep saying that, you know, David predicted this stuff, but none of it's happened. So you can't say
No.
that he's predicted something that's not happened. Like, it makes no sense.
Version of,
I'm
It's
going to
the top
skip
one,
past all of
where
this
there's gonna be
because
chaos.
Okay, now that's what I kind of captured from this initially, and even what Catherine's saying about, you know, really he probably just got this on layers, so that way it's pretty much however you want to determine, or you know, determine what this means or interpret it. That's how it's gonna. It is probably still correct, and so I interpret it as just basically this. Is if you look at both scripts, he's leaving it open now.
you know, but sticking the aliens in there kind of took away from.
Case, especially like the Beaumont children here in Australia, the children haven't been found for over, well, come up with 60 years
Wow.
almost, right? Those type of discussions can be heard at the dinner table, like the body in the barrel murders here in South Australia, where the people were cutting up
family
people,
confused when they skip around
talked
and the
about at the
stuff.
dinner table. I'm just trying to.
I think it starts from
The
around
people
here.
that saw the bodies, and the people that have heard about it, you know, living there. Like, I know if something like that happened where I live, I'm sure we'd still be talking about it. We'd still be, you know, talking about, especially the strange, so all of the strange things that are tied to this case. Now, maybe people don't want to focus on that, and they just, you know, oh, this guy was crazy and he killed his family. So for the neighbors, I can totally see why they would not want to venture down this big rabbit hole that all of us have kind of gone down, because it's a pretty scary thought when you think about that, and when you think about the fact that there could still be a killer out there, and they may still be there, or killers, you never know, you know. But that's a really good thought. I'd be curious to hear if there's any neighbors or any friends that are listening.
Like they're going to phone
In
you,
that
Greg.
area,
You're the
in the
biggest
Apple
stirrer
Valley,
out here. They're not
Minnesota
going to phone
area,
you.
you know, drop
And nobody else has died. Nobody's been murdered. So there isn't another killer out there because the killer's dead.
Yeah.
drop a comment. I'd love to know if this is still something that is being
Well,
talked
that's
about.
another thing too. Besides your book, Greg, there hasn't really been any other book.
Well, that's the thing. Like, all of the rabbit holes are shit that they've done. You know,
Yeah.
all of the misinformation that they put out, like the multiple blunt force trauma, the hair gun, the footprints, you know, all
Yeah.
these little things that they've said that was misinformation. That's a rabbit hole, because
Yeah.
you're talking about it, and then someone else is taking that and they're running with it, and then they're adding their own little twist to it to make it sound good. And that makes another rabbit hole, you know. So the only rabbit holes that are being made is the misinformation that they're putting out. So, you know, it's if there was no rabbit hole, like misinformation that they had put out, then the case is clear. You know, you have the evidence to read and the documents to read But then you have the added, there are 7 years of videos of misinformation out there
Yeah.
too. So
And what ifs?
Book's been written about
Yeah.
the David Crowley case. Yeah.
No, and to answer Greg's question real quick about in most states they do require
Oh, they do.
if there was a violent death that occurred. Not all, but most do.
Yeah.
They're required to do
I
that.
mean, it was
I
disclosed
think I got something on
when the
on
house
that.
was sold.
Unfortunately, my neighbor just committed suicide literally the other night with his family home. It's about halfway down my street, which is a dead-end private street. $2 million house. I left the house and saw 6 cruisers outside, and they literally didn't tell anything. Like I'm telling you, they didn't go around the street knocking on everyone's door. Like they questioned literally the people who lived like right next to that house. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, they didn't go around the neighborhood and knock on every door and notify everybody. So that's Southern California. So I think it's quite a different policy state to state, I would guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying before. When it's a serial, not serial, when it's a serious case, many years later, it's still being talked about at the dinner table. I'm not saying everyone's talking about it, but if you want to be a fly on the wall, you will hear a conversation about a certain case that happened here in Australia, especially where I live. In Australia, called South Australia, we're the murder capital of Australia, right? Like the Beaumont children, they disappeared in 1966, and those kids had never been found. They had been suspected murdered, but the bodies have never been found, right? Not long after the Beaumont children, we had another child abduction at Adelaide Oval. That person hasn't been found. And those types of
questions you could have around the table about things like that. I think that gray state goes into category of handy sook, where you're either on one side or the other. You're a horrible person if you believe otherwise on either case. Same type of deal.
It's true.
Yep. So we're just looking at here, the murder capital of Australia, Australian South. This is where I live.
The David Crowley case has not gotten the press that it really should have. And every time that it's brought up, it's always the same thing. When we're talking about, oh, this guy went crazy, killed his wife, killed his kid, and blah, 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 killed himself, and that's it.
because that's it. Like you can't put a twist in your opinion.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Like, what story do you want them to put? Do you want them to put out a bunch of misinformation?
Yeah.
That's what they want. They want somebody to put out, their rabbit holes and their nonsense that they've, thrown out there for 7 years, and there's no proof to it. They're putting out, what's being put out in the stories or the interviews or whatever is the evidence and the proof and not the opinion, but the truth of the case, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else that they can put out.
He thought the government was coming after him, et cetera, but putting it into that context, I would have to say no. I don't think too many people even know about this case. Maybe even people inside of that state too, or even in that area that live there. They may not have no knowledge that something like that happened right down there.
Well, I would have think that local news covered it, Greg. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, and it seems like there's not much going on out there. I don't really know the area well, as some of you guys do, but that's basically what I was saying. They would have a better chance of seeing it covered in local articles or the local nightly news stuff that you guys covered than you would having law enforcement going around door to door knocking on, telling you, unless you're a direct neighbor, like I was saying. Yeah. And then there's some people that are trolling online that's really not helping.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, anyone that has a different opinion is a troll. Eric.
Yeah. That's sad because the way they look at it is we're trolls because
we're trolls. They're cancel culture.
So we're like, if you put out anything that changes the outlook on their narrative, even if it's evidence and it's the truth, and it makes them look bad, then that is somebody trolling them. And Dan
Yeah.
actually said that himself, didn't he? He said, you know, if I let them take over this page, or I let them admin my page, and they put the church up, and it makes me look bad, you know,
Yeah.
like you can't make that shit up. You
No.
can't make it up. And so anybody that goes against their opinion or their narrative of this, even when it comes to evidence and proof, they don't want to hear it because it's trolling,
Yeah.
because it's making them look bad.
Yeah.
Is basically what they're saying. So, and that's why they don't like it.
Yeah.
But guess what? We're not going anywhere.
Nope.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So yeah, if it comes,
exactly.
Plural.
So-
Plural. Just saying. It's a plural.
yeah. So I don't want to scare people, but if you come to South Australia, you might accidentally get yourself killed. No, you won't
Oh,
get killed.
thanks. Oh, thanks, Jamie.
Was that a threat?
Mm.
Didn't that sound like a threat to you?
It did sound like a threat, yes.
Yeah. Let me back up just a tad bit.
Going on out there. I don't really know the area well, as some of you guys do, but that's basically what I was saying. They would have a better chance of seeing it covered in local articles or the local nightly news stuff that you guys covered than you would having law enforcement going around door to door knocking on, telling you, unless you're a direct neighbor, like I was saying. Yeah. And then there's some people that are trolling online that's really not helping. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
Yeah. No kidding.
it's always going to be the case.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
So how is okay? This isn't a threat. This isn't a threat at all. But I promise you, I guarantee that these guys would not be talking the shit that they were talking if they were in somebody's face.
No.
I can guarantee it. They are keyboard warriors
Yeah.
and sit behind a computer and cough out the name Judy instead of just saying it because you're pussies. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Just say it since you're big and bad, and you say somebody's trolling. This is the woman that found them. How much longer would they have been laying there? The dog probably would have died had Judy and her husband not found them and called the police.
Exactly. And then you try and
You guys are-
discredit anything that Judy says, even though she was there and she saw what she saw, and none of you idiots have ever even
No,
set
it's-
foot on Ramsdale Drive.
Like these people are talking about why? Like, what glorified feeling do you get out of trying to discredit?
They've got masculinity issues.
I don't know what they have. It's something. It's something, and that's real sad. Coming from grown men
I know.
trying to discredit an
Well,
older
it's
woman.
little boys in men's bodies.
Yes.
Excuse me.
So yeah, if it comes,
Exactly.
Plural.
So-
Plural. Just saying. It's a plural.
yeah. So I don't want to scare people, but if you come to South Australia, you might accidentally get yourself killed. No, you won't
Oh,
get killed.
thanks.
You
Oh,
won't.
thanks, Jamie.
You
Jamie's
won't get killed.
just trying to keep us out of Australia. That's what I think.
Oh, Jamie's trying to get your channel taken down.
Oh yeah, because that was a threat. That was a threat. So I gotta
Feel
make
free.
sure that I snippet that and
Yeah.
send it to YouTube.
Well, I mean, I think the quarantine camps are doing plenty of that already. So.
That's
Hey.
true.
As on the positive side, at least we'll still have a major party if we all get locked up in quarantine. We'll still have a major party. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Well, that's true. Gulag parties. Let's do it.
Always looking at the positive side. I love that. Let's see. So I think maybe we'll go through some of this PowerPoint here. Eric, maybe if you could turn your mic next time just a little bit lower, I think that will.
Oh, it's still okay.
It's
loud.
still
Oh,
it's still a little high. It's not as high, but
How's
I
that?
think we're
Is
getting
that better right there?
That sounds better.
Is it too loud though still?
No, that's
Oh, it
actually really
sounds great
good. I
now.
think, yeah. And what the heck's going on with this slideshow? Why is it showing that? Or is that, why is it showing the next slide? Oh, I hate PowerPoint sometimes.
Right?
Such a nightmare. Why is it showing that taskbar? Don't show that. Don't show that. I don't know why it's showing the side thing over here. That's going to drive me crazy. I can get this. See all slides. Of course, that never happens. It's so odd.
Directly in there, it talks about mold being on 2 of the bodies, not the third one. Mold. We already know the Kamel, whoever. I think it was Bruce something. He was the medical examiner on that one, on Kamel's body, and so he ended up doing the data and the whole autopsy report quite a bit different than David and Renia's. So we know that that could play a factor.
Rania.
But as far as we know, there was mold with David and Renia's bodies.
Rania.
With Renia, for those of
Rania.
He calls her 15 different names in these videos. Rania, Renaya, Rihanna. Like, dude.
I know.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
seeing the bodies, I'm obviously not going to show it. Obviously, I don't think you're going to either.
They do it all the time. They do it all the time. What do you mean you don't think they're going to? They do it all the time.
It's one of those things you can clearly see it on Renia. You don't see it on David. And I've looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. I have not. I've scoured that photo. I cannot find anything on David at all.
Okay, you want to know why you can't find anything, Mr. Fail? Because mold isn't always visible. And you can find that. All you got to do is Google it. Mold is not always visible. Okay. Also, you have people in different parts of the house. Their bodies are covered more than others, or their
in the line of the heat,
hands.
or they're not by the heat, and you don't know where the dog's whittled near them. There's all sorts of variables that come into play.
What did they drink before they died? You know, what did they smoke? Did they go to the bathroom before they died? Did they not go to the bathroom? Like those are key things that play into your mold and your fungal things going on here. But mold and mildew and things like that isn't always visible. So if you're scouring pictures of these poor people's decomposing bodies, first off, you definitely have an issue mentally. Second off, you need to do more investigation because it's not always visible. But they don't put that into account. You know? They never put things like that into account, that things aren't always visible. You blood, it separates from the plasma. Sometimes you can't see the blood. That's why they have to use chemicals
and microscopes
to enhance it, or swabs to get samples, because it's not always visible. And the same thing applies here. So
when it comes to mold, which means it had to have been internal. Well, with Renia, it is external and internal. So for me, that kind of struck something there. I'm like, well, why is this mentioned, but nothing's done about it? So I started doing some digging, and I found several different reports
the outcome of the case,
that, it's not going to give you the exact time necessarily. It can give you relatively close to it, at least, a time of death. But they have been using this for some time now, and there has been cases where forensic mycology actually is the reason they're able to go and put somebody behind bars. So, but basically, I just compiled some information here, as you guys can see on the screen, from 3 different reports. There's the fungal growth on a corpse, a case report. You can see right there, it plays a role in the determination of the time of death, burial place, and time of leaving the body where it was found, and cause of death, hallucination, and poisoning.
Outside.
And forensic mycology is considered an auxiliary method in the determination of the time of death, just like forensic entomology, which is the study of bugs.
So these are all forensic reports from outside.
Yeah.
where there's actual
different molds in soil and fungus and things, and then they can see whether the person has got fungus on them from a different location that's not found in that environment.
right. So like flies and maggots, things like that. Like you have, you have your I forgot what the hell it's called now. You have different things that cause different things to happen to the body, basically.
Yeah.
And this would be your fungal growth if somebody died on the other side of town as opposed to what they found on this side of town. Does the fungus match up to the fungus on the ground over there?
And then there's the other one, the fungal. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but fungal microbiota dynamics as a post-mortem investigation tool. And they looked at 3 species of mycology, or what's it called? I'm not going to use the Latin term, like fungal and mold growth. And they did find that it can be used as a determination to kind of get the time of death. At least somewhat close to it. And then you've got, of course, the forensic mycology, current perspectives. It says determination of postmortem intervals for mold growth in corpses and providing trace evidence linking people and objects with places. So you can use it for a little extra than just time of death, which is.
But the question is, what is this going to narrow it down to? I would think they would use this type of forensics in more of a months, like if they were there for months and they were outside for 3 or 4 months, kind of like Casey Anthony or Kaylee Anthony. She was outside for, 6 months, 7 months, in a field, as opposed to a few weeks. 3 weeks inside of a home. They're not going to have to use this type of forensics because there's already a narrowed down time.
And there's the electronics and all that kind of stuff that they can tie in with, so they don't need to spend the money on these sort of more expensive things. And that's still more time consuming as well, because you've got to then grow the mold for comparison and time and everything.
Yeah, I mean it's pointless to do that because we're not talking about months here. They weren't laying there for months.
They know they were killed or they died on the scene.
Yeah, and you have
the house is registered to them.
Yep, you have a gun. You have people that knew them that said, this is the last time we've seen them. This is the last day that Rania went to school. This is the last day that the mail was taken out of the mailbox. This is the last time somebody answered their phone. This is when the thing on the computer was typed up or whatever. They look at the circumstances around the bodies and the case itself. And so they don't really need this type of forensic. It's kind of pointless to use this type of forensics. It's like bringing a knife to a gun show.
Yeah.
Gonna bring this knife over here, this fungal, the small detail, in longer cases and in cases where people's been outside or for months, whatever, yes. But they don't need any of this.
No.
It's pointless. It's pointless. And that's the whole thing. That's the only MO that they have to go on is we can't find any evidence that proves David innocent. And so we have to nitpick these small details that have no merit or warrant into this case. It's stupid. It's stupid.
It's rather interesting, I found. So
this stuff is so complicated to understand.
Well, I mean, it's
for me.
It is at first glance. I will give you that. It took me a second to kind of understand it. I'm like, okay, well, what exactly does this mean here? I went through the reports a few times. On some of them, even 3-4 times, because I was really trying to understand where it was coming from. But now that I've got it now, it's kind of like, okay, that makes sense. But it's basically, can we determine time of death, or at least a rough.
They already have a rough estimate. They already have the date that they because of the circumstances and
Yeah.
because of the conditions of the bodies. And that's, that's their main source of time of death, manner of death, cause of death is, where are they at? What happened to them and who did it? All of this forensic other stuff pops into play when you have proof that somebody else was involved,
Yeah.
Now, had they said, oh, well, we found somebody else's DNA in the house and we think that there's another perpetrator, then yeah, maybe something like this would have came into play.
Yeah.
But
They know what is a
because-
kind of typical mold on a decomposing body under sort of these kind of circumstances. If they saw a fungus that they were sort of thinking, well, this is only typically found in a cave,
yeah,
then that would warrant further investigation.
yeah, like why do we have mold from a cave inside of a house,
Yeah.
So obviously they're not understanding it very well. William, you keep failing at all of this. Like, just keep failing. Your name fits you well.
Estimate, if you will, better than just kind of like, okay, this body is here. We can assume based on this, A, B, and C here. This is what this just adds to the equation to further bring that time down. But this is going to be more accurate, especially after the body's been sitting there for a second. It's going to take time for mold growth, and there's a lot of factors that can adjust it too. I know Catherine and I talked about it before the stream. That there's some factors like you can have health conditions that could cause it. You could have pre-mold growth or some kind of fungal growth on the body. There's a lot of things that can alter these things. But yeah, it's one of those things that the police do use this. Crime scene investigators actually do use this. It's really useful, and they did have a good amount of information on this even before the case even began, and they didn't use it,
Because they didn't need to.
I'm questioning why, because they do mention the autopsy report, yet they do nothing about.
Well, William Rail, it's really easy. All you got to do is email them to find out why they didn't use that method, and I'm sure that they can tell you why. Because it wasn't warranted here. There's no reason to use this type of forensic and spend that type of money on that type of testing if it's pointless. They already have from the evidence or from the circumstantial evidence or the surrounding evidence and the forensics that they did use. There's no reason to use this, method here. You don't have to use every single method in forensics when it comes to cases.
So,
Should I move to the next slide?
yes.
All right, slide number 2 here. So now we're looking at David Crowley's autopsy report and Ranya's autopsy. And this is where it mentions mold-like growth. Mold growth for David and then mold-like growth for Ranya, but none for Camille.
Right. No.
Camille had numerous layers on, and she's under the blanket.
Yeah. Well, and again, that depends on, did they go to the bathroom before they died? Did they release themselves before they died? That, if you have food still in your stomach capsule, then, of course it's going to have mold or...
Nothing at all there.
I'm not good
when we
with.
see this.
I'm telling you, I'm not good with this forensic stuff, but it's pretty clear.
You have to do process of elimination before you go to the other extreme testings. They're going to do the basics. If they don't get the answers from the basics, then they'll progress to more extensive things. But you've got to take into consideration the whole picture of everything.
Yeah.
It does directly say postmortem mold growth for David, and I found it a little odd too because you can clearly see it on Rena's body. You see postmortem.
Another name, Rena. Oh God! All right, I'm gonna put Braylon's popcorn in. We're gonna take a break here for a minute, and we shall return. Give me about 3 minutes, Louise.
No problem.
All right. I'm gonna mute it. I'll be right
Yep.
back. All right, are you there?
I am, yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll probably go through another few minutes, and then I gotta make the kids food because they're all griping at me. All right.
Mold-like growth. Yeah, this is where I was having some issues with it because I mean you and I have talked about this when it came to the autopsy reports. There's a lot of things that are kind of going back and forth on, whether it be with Kamel where they say in there with the bullet wound, it was in the very top when they start talking about trajectory, they say it was back to front, and then later on in that report they say front to back. So it's like, well, what is it, guys? But this is one of those things that I'm kind of like trying to figure out, okay, what exactly does mold-like growth mean when we can visibly see it, though, and we can see on the outside. And even then, one of the reports I was using, I went and redacted the thing for streaming purposes, but they did include pictures, and I mean, those pictures they had reminded me of exactly what happened in that photo of the Crowleys, and we got to see Rania. It looked just like that, which was really, really striking to me. And now we're getting to see real-world examples here of other cases that, well, we're seeing the mold growth, and we're seeing that this is, they were able to determine all sorts of different things about this. How long the body had been there, where maybe this person had been prior to where they found the body. Things like that can definitely play kind of a role in, did somebody kill this person or not? But we're also looking at time of death, too, which is the really interesting part. And with the amount of mold that's on the outside of Rania's body, plus she also had, quote, mold-like growth in the liver and biliary system, well, she had it inside and out. David only had it inside. So, going over this, those reports even show, and for those that want to see it, I mean, I can always post up in chat, of course, but on Twitch. But you can see those reports. They even talk about that. It's usually you got most of the cases they found. There's going to be the internal growth because you got the decomposition going, and then of course you can go outward, and it generally does. But you've also got the ones where it does occur on the outside, which seems to be a little less frequent, but it does determine. And what's determined on that is basically.
Do you want to skim forward a bit through this because it's completely irrelevant?
Yeah.
In talking about the mold.
Yeah, I was waiting on the dog.
Yeah.
The dog part.
Grow a little slower, but then test 2.
I know it's around those parts somewhere.
Yeah.
At 68 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see that it's growing. It grows pretty quickly, actually, at that rate. I didn't, of course, include the rates, which I do apologize. I should have included that. But 5 o'clock p.m. just saying.
Well, if we're mentioning temperatures right now and the thermostat that it's set at, my thermostat right now is set at 76 degrees, and it's 21 degrees outside. It's really cold.
Mm.
And so my entire house is not 76 degrees. Like in here in the living room, I have a draft.
Yeah.
And so it's like 50 degrees. And,
yeah.
And then in my daughter's room that's in the back of the house, it's like 50 degrees back there,
Yeah.
because
yeah.
not every room is going to be at what the thermostat says.
Exactly.
You have there's a thermometer usually somewhere around where the touchpad is. I know ours is inside of our touchpad. And so whenever it reaches 76 degrees right there by the touchpad, which is right by the outlet, it kicks it off. But that, it doesn't warrant that what the air feels like in other parts of the house.
Yeah.
So the temperature or what the thermostat says, it's relevant to an extent, but you're playing with, 10 to 15 degrees depending on where you're at in the house.
Yeah.
But
interesting. Yeah, sorry. Interesting that you brought this up because Eric made a very valid point last year when we were talking about this case about why wasn't there any maggots around the bodies.
It was too cold.
Yeah.
If indeed that the bodies were there over a long, substantial time period, right?
Yeah, and I can talk to the coroner about this, and
Yeah.
as you look at the residence, 68 degrees is warm enough.
We're talking outside temperature, though. There were no flies alive in Minnesota at that temperature.
She is hell bent on this one, and this is funny because she
Yeah.
was like, before was always asking about the flies. And
Yep.
it's so funny to see how she is. Like, she goes from believing one thing, like, she believing the multiple blunt force trauma, and I guarantee in probably a few years she's going to be like, nope, that was the inside of the skull. Like,
Yep.
she'll change her whole outlook on anything she's ever said.
Right, we were looking into, I know it's 0 degrees in Michigan right now, but we still have fruit flies.
Right.
So,
Well, and see, I thought about that myself, but the thing is, when it comes down, is they did have fruit in the house, which is interesting about that. But, I haven't seen a fly in my house, and we've had, we've had fruit and vegetables up on the counter, and sometimes things go a little bad, as we don't get to it in time. We haven't had any fruit flies or anything, and that's the really weird thing, and that's over here in Oregon. It's like 30 degrees, and we still don't. I haven't seen a fly.
Yeah, and you have to remember, too, that just because you have little gnats or little fruit flies, those are not the same thing as a housefly. A housefly, and plus the life expectancy of those little insects. But the reality is a fruit fly and a gnat are not going to lay maggots within dead flesh. A housefly will. So you're comparing
Who was blowing their nose? So many times I've heard this about their video. They're just like blowing the hell out of their honker. Like, turn your microphone off, man. Good God.
apples to oranges.
Well, but there is one fair comparison. So if we find fruit flies, we should be able to have house flies, because the fruit fly is going to die much faster in that type of temperature than a house fly would. So we're looking at a lower temperature.
I don't think that's true, because a fruit fly it's going to need a source like fruit or whatever to survive, and that's where they grow and that's where they're born and all this other stuff. But a house fly, they're generally, not to say that they can't be grown or whatever, hatch inside a house, but generally they're an outside insect that will come inside.
Correct.
Again, it's just, you're comparing apples to oranges, but it was just...
Bravo, Kathy. Woo! I gotta give you props on that one. Like, yeah. And the thing is, like, William Rowe picks up these little nitpick things, and then he gets proven wrong, and then they have this back and forth of no, I don't think so, no, I don't think so,
I'm trying to remember who brought up fruit flies first. I think it was Sophia a couple of months ago. It was either her or William, and there was a bit of a thing where they were going on about fruit flies, and it's like, it's completely irrelevant, but at least Kathy the Oracle's actually right on this one.
Yeah.
Just way too cold in Minnesota that time of year for a fly. So the fact that there aren't any maggots on the body, that really is understandable.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely understandable.
Well, what he also brought up.
Make up your mind, William Royal. Do fruit flies lay maggots on human flesh, or do they not?
Well, this will be why Sophie's gone quiet, because this was her theory that she was trying to argue the other month.
Yeah.
Up the corner was the dog poop and the possible parasites
Right.
and the dog poop that were on their way over to the bodies too. But I mean, these are great points, and learning a lot today.
Well, the back door was still left open. You can still smell it, from the outside. Even if you're in like 6 feet from that door, you'll still be able to smell it. Like there was supposed to be dog feeders around the place too.
Feces, I think he meant there. I think he's a bit overexcited.
Feces. Like, Ranya's name is Ranya, and dog feces are feces, not fetuses.
Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
if you already had COVID back then, your taste of smell was probably gone out the window. But who knows, man? I mean,
What?
I have absolutely no idea.
Oh, God. If you had COVID back in 2015, your smell might have went out the window because what?
I know here in Australia it does snow in winter in certain places. You still get flies here in Australia. Doesn't matter what freaking season it is.
That's in Australia. That's not in Minnesota.
And if it's no, you won't have flies.
Well, I mean, here in Texas, we get flies, okay? Like,
Yeah.
right now we don't have regular house flies, but we have drain flies, we have
Yeah.
blow flies, we have gnats, and we have big-ass horse flies that are here all year round. But, you know, we don't have frozen ground unless we have a freeze, kind of like we did last year, and then you don't see anything. We have warm days, and then we have cold days. And then, you know, it can be 30 degrees one day and 70, 80 degrees the next day.
Yeah.
So when it's cold, you know, they burrow themselves underground. And when it's warm, they come out to find food. And so, you know, that's probably the same thing that happens in Australia. You have, you know, 30-degree days and you have 70, 80-degree days to where the fly can kind of go back and forth to get what it needs to survive.
Yeah.
As opposed to Minnesota that goes through a deep freeze in the wintertime. And so flies burrow and stay there until after the winter's over with.
They go into like a comatose kind of state.
Yeah, completely different situation here, you know.
If it stinks to high heaven, you will attract flies. And if these bodies were in a decomposed state, you will attract something.
Yeah, and not to go too.
If a fly is underground outside underneath of, you know, 2 to 3 foot of snow and ice, they're not going to smell nothing. They're not going to detect anything because their bodies or their bodies at that time are trying to keep themselves warm. Like you said, they go into like a comatose state. Their biggest thing right now is to keep themselves warm enough to survive the winter. They don't even have the senses at that time to detect any kind of human flesh or decomposition because their bodies aren't. They're not working in that manner. Like if I go outside right now and it's freezing outside, my internal instincts, my body is going to try to keep my heart and my insides warm. And my hands and feet are going to freeze because the blood isn't going to flow to those parts of my body because it's not a necessary function of life.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
the same thing happens for a fly.
Yeah. It's like here, you know, it's cold here at the moment. And so, like, hate to lower the tone, but when the dog's been and done his business, there aren't like flies sort of landing on it or anything. In the summer, as soon as he's done his business, there's flies, you know, like blue and green bottle flies hovering around because that's what flies are attracted to. But in the winter, they're not around to be there, you know, landing on it and doing what they do.
Yeah.
Too far off topic, but real quick, I'd like, you know, compare that to when I first, you know, dog owners would not like to think that a dog would eat them. They were diseased for a few days, but, you know, after doing more research on it, that's perfectly normal.
This is what we've been
Dogs
saying.
Yeah, I'm still shocked by that.
Not perfectly normal for them not to turn to the bag of food that's sitting right there where the dog knows it gets fed. But something to do with emotionally and psychologically, the dogs do that out of love.
They eat their owner out of love.
Done as hard as that was to follow. Looking at my dogs, you know, I'm thinking of that. But they do that. So you know, it's great to go through the evidence here and throw out things that are there's too many points of contention, or there's might be misinformation. And I'm glad that you guys go really in depth, like we're looking at right here. You're bringing up something that I haven't seen with the mole growth. Just when I think I've seen thousands of pieces of evidence contradicting the official narrative, here comes another piece.
Well,
Hey,
the thing is, when it
But yet, didn't they say it wasn't investigated enough?
Yeah, and they've been saying that dogs won't do that, and yet
Yeah.
now Eric's saying they will do it, and
Yeah,
Rick's
it's
vet
changed
friend
now.
said yes, they will do it. So now all of a sudden they've changed, and maybe if they were to look at some of the stuff that they don't want to look at, they would have found this out and saved themselves a lot of time and effort, because we've been saying
and
this for ages.
But that's the sad thing about it. They don't go back and say, oh, well, we messed up and we gave out misinformation. They come back at, oh, those people are trolls. When we've been saying this for a long time,
Yeah.
We've been putting up the proof that, pets do this to their owners
Yeah.
out of instinct. Not out of love, not out of feeling. It's out of instinct.
Yeah.
We've been saying this for a long time, but yet they say, oh, you're trolls. Why? Because we proved something a long time ago that you're just now realizing?
Exactly.
When it comes to things like the dog and stuff, you got to remember, too, they're claiming this dog ate a ton of flesh, a ton of bone, and, I'm not
too.
Right. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense because of, if you look at how long this dog would have been there, regardless of like the range, we're looking at least, and we can even go with the police narrative and just say, okay, fine, we'll go whatever, like 26th or whatever they're saying. You can go up until then. He's not eating all of that bone and all that.
Oh, God. 3 weeks, you have a dog in a house with these bodies, okay? There's bones, but there's flesh on those bones.
Yeah.
And so the dog eats that, and he chews on the bones, and he leaves the bones scattered all over the house.
Yeah. He eats
nobody's-
the brains that are exposed
Nobody's
when the
saying that he
decomposition
ate all
falls
those
apart.
bones.
No, I mean, I don't know why they keep saying this, and then in the next breath they're saying, and here, look at this skull piece, there's multiple blunt force trauma. Well, there can't be a skull piece there with multiple blunt force trauma if the dog is eating all the skulls, as you lot keep saying, and then trying to say that we're saying that he ate all the, like, the heads. It's like, a head is made up of face, tissue, hair, scalp, brain. You can't just say the head. You've got to get a little bit more in detail to it as to skull, brain, facial features, hair, scalp.
And then you have the damage from the gun itself.
Yeah.
That's the damage that made the pieces.
Yeah.
And the dog was able to get to that flesh and the blood
Yeah.
and all of that. Like, they're thinking that
It's like if you
the
shot
head
an
was-
onion, isn't it? Like, sort of if you obviously it's not the same, but they use like blooming water balloons as things in arterial spray. So that's onions and layers. There's a layer on top of a layer on top of a layer. You've got the skin and the hair that's on top of the skull. The skull's on top of the brain. When the wound occurs, it does catastrophic damage to all those layers. Then you've got like the decomp and the scavenging. So the top layer comes away, then the next layer comes away, and then he gets inside and he eats the brains. Because there's without, oh God, it makes me feel sick thinking about it. But people that eat animal brains, so I'm just going to go on that sort of thing. Like there's nutrition in that. It's not my choice of a menu thing, but hey, if you're desperate and you need to survive, you're gonna you're not gonna get picky. And it's that scent of a familiar scent of your owner and the scent of decomposition and blood and stuff is going to attract the dog to mess around there. It's really is quite simple.
Yep. And then you have, the theory of, well, Ranya's head wasn't in as bad a shape as, David and Kamel's. Well, David shot himself from the front, so that you have smaller bones and in the front of the face than you do in the back of the skull.
Yeah.
And then you have Kamel, who was shot twice. So, of course, there's going to be more damage to her. There's going to be more damage to David because of the smaller bones in the face.
Yeah.
As opposed to Rania, who was shot, in those harder bones in the back of the head and not through her facial area.
And
you're not going to have that damage.
If he'd done exactly the same to each three bodies, then, they still would have been saying the same thing, like, that's not normal, that's too, why did you go for that and not go for that? Unless you have the mind of a dog, which none of us do, then no one can say why he did what he did, and, other than thinking that maybe perhaps as a dog he knew there would be, again, it sounds horrible, but more kind of nutritional value or less effort for him to do where he did. He's a dog and he was going on his instinct. That's all you can say about it. And whether you think it's weird or not, none of us are dogs and none of us are scavenging owners.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like with Ranya's arm, maybe like when the dog was able to pull it off because he was trying to get her attention or something,
Yeah.
And put his paw and pulled her arm. I mean, it's bad to say, but dogs, I've seen, I had two dogs that loved bones. Like, I would get the cow bones from the store, and I mean, they would tear those things up in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about in a matter of minutes, these things were gone. Like, there was nothing left of them. And so to say, oh, well, there's no way that dog, that teeny tiny little teacup poodle over there could have eaten that many bones. Well, we know that, around the time that this happened, that Paleo was around 45 pounds. And we know this because there was people around that dog and people that have the sibling to that dog that have already mentioned this. And so Paleo was not a small teacup poodle. He was a regular medium-sized dog. There's video of the force that he runs with. I mean, he had you could hear that. Like, when his paws hit the ground, it was like, poof.
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to instincts, even gerbils and guinea pigs have eaten their owners. And we're talking about little bitty things the size of mice.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. I don't understand how they can't. Google is free, man. Google is free. And there's so many, stories and proof out there that proves this stuff, but yet they fail to even to go look at it. And they say, oh, well, that's not possible. There's no way that dog could have done it. I guarantee you they can, and they have done it. It's instinct.
Flesh. And then on top of that, licking up all that blood. And I would even argue some more decomp fluid too. I mean, I'm not buying that. It doesn't make any sense.
The dingo ate me baby.
And how did the dog not get sick from the decaying flesh? And
how do you know he didn't get sick? Would you there to see him?
Didn't they watch Rick's interview with the vet where he said it was 50-50?
Yeah. And you have the dog who has, he's been eating on these bodies for weeks.
Yeah.
So he's not just going from dog food to decomposed flesh. He's gradually changing his diet from going from dog food to a raw diet to decomposing flesh. So, but nobody knows if he got sick or not. He could have gotten sick. And dogs eat their own vomit sometimes.
Yeah.
So who's to say that he didn't eat it and he got sick?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Stuff, because an inside dog or a a domesticated dog is completely different
Right.
than a wild animal.
Bingo, there would have been.
No, they're not. They have the same animal instincts when they kick in. They're domesticated to a sense, to
Yeah.
when it's
They're still like
how do
a
they-
dog is an omnivore. It will eat fruit, veg, meat. They're scavengers by nature.
Well, we just had a story come out the other day about this family had their dog for 5 years, and they had just had a brand new newborn,
Mm.
and they put the baby in the little cot thing next to the couch, and the dad went out to smoke. And when he came back in, the dog had gotten a hold of the baby.
Yeah.
This is a dog that they said had never attacked anybody,
Mm.
has been in their family for 5 years, has been around kids, never growled or snarled or did anything to anybody in the family. But
They
he just
reckon
killed
that,
their newborn baby.
They reckon that some part of what might be happening when that's occurring is that the baby starts crying or whimpering, and they
Yeah.
associate it with, like a puppy crying or whimpering,
Yeah.
and then they try and pick it up like they would a
One of their
puppy.
puppies.
And
yeah.
then, that's what I've sort of, things that I've read, because we've had quite a few incidents of that over here. But again, I'm not claiming to be an expert on the topic, but there's quite a few different thoughts into, it's not always down to complete, like just turning an aggression. Sometimes
Right.
it is.
It's instinct. It's
Yeah.
animal instinct. They hear the whimpering, the whining, and they think, oh, it's a puppy. I got to calm it down because it's a puppy. And so they do what their instincts, even as a domesticated dog, they still have that animal instinct,
Mm.
what they know to do. Just like a mother knows, most mothers know how to feed their babies,
Yeah.
when they're born. And when a baby's born, you don't actually really have to do anything other than put the baby on the mother's stomach. The baby's feet push and contract the uterus, and they crawl themselves to the breast.
Yeah.
It's called the breast crawl. It's a natural thing that happens. You can look it up on YouTube. It's a natural thing that happens. It's called the breast crawl. And the baby lays on the stomach, contracts the uterus, so the placenta is taken out, and they make their own way to the mother's breast from instinct. Same thing happens with animals. They have animal instincts,
Yeah.
and they do what they're, what they do, especially
Yeah.
when it comes to survival.
Been puke everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
there's
would have
no
also
puke,
been
is
running
there?
poop.
Yeah,
And
there
you
are.
ran.
I mean, I'm not trying to disappoint people, but some domestic dogs can turn on people. It all depends on the owner, how
Right.
they treat
Yeah.
the dog, right? But
Absolutely.
when it comes back to that, the dingo ate my baby scenario that happened here in Australia, I mean,
Did the dingo throw up?
well, the court has now proved that, yeah, the dingo did actually do it. Now, here's the thing. Wild dogs like a dingo, they're like scavengers. If you've got food lying around, yeah, they'll come out of the woods and whatnot, and they'll come for the hunt, right? And 9 times out of 10, even a domestic dog can be, quote unquote, on the fence whether they attack young kids or not.
Sure, you're talking
Right.
about ones that are alive though, where the research I found,
Yeah,
they're dead. It's actually quite normal for a dog. to
like,
be.
yeah, I mean, young kids has been attacked by domestic dogs all around Australia every single year. I'm not saying Parlo, the dog, was a vicious animal, but like I said, it all comes back down to the owner, how they treat that dog.
No, it
And,
doesn't.
it just goes to show that, if right? Let's just be conspiracy. No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a spoiler alert. Let's say for a
No, you're not, Jamie. You're not a spoiler alertist. You are a conspiracy theorist.
let's say for hindsight, yeah, Pele did do what many others knuckleheads say that he did, right? That he did eat the body and whatnot.
That's quite, after doing the research, that's quite normal. That means that it does love it, believe it or not.
I mean,
So now veterinarians and professionals who have studied this are knuckleheads.
Yeah. And Eric is now a knucklehead, according to Jamie, because Eric's saying that
Yes,
they do
yeah.
scavenge dead bodies, but now he's being slurred. But carry on.
Yep. Yep.
if the dog's hungry, yeah, they're going to look for a food source, but they don't necessarily go for a human, right? They go for that dog food that was up against the counter.
No, they're not. Human is no different than an animal if it's dead and it
Exactly.
has flesh. It's the same thing. And like I've said before, put a hand of dog food out and a hand of raw meat out and tell me which one the dog goes for first.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the dog food.
But if the dog was mishandled in any shape or form before that, that's a possibility. I'm just saying, dogs do that. So if you talk about the dingo ate me baby, they can attack young kids. And remember, the baby was only a few months old when it got attacked. So, yeah.
No, the research I did actually showed that it shows the dog is showing love by doing that. Regardless, the dog would have certainly torn into the bag of food also. Because dog will eat anything. He eats his own poop. That's so. It would have gotten into.
Well, there you go. You answer your question. Where's the dog poop? Where's the vomit?
Yeah.
You just answered your own question there, genius.
That bag too. But yeah, it's actually, it sucked looking it up because, you know, again, looking at people out there who have pups, you couldn't imagine that, but it's actually a form of love after the owners are deceased.
What? I don't think that dog cares. Okay, and just to be honest, it's
like
dogs-
it's like a combination of everything. It's not so much. I think love is the wrong word. It's trying to rouse your owner that's on the floor. You're trying to rouse them. You're cleaning their wounds because they clean wounds. Then they panic because, you know, they can't hear your heartbeat. They can't smell your living sense. They're starting to realize that something's wrong. And then they get sort of traumatized, and then this instinct kicks in.
Yep. Yep.
And then
they
hunger
do.
as well.
Dogs are smart, man. They have dogs that can detect diabetes and epilepsy and things like that. You know, and dogs are smart. Even ones that aren't trained, they still have those instincts to be able to say, you know, oh wow, you know, something's not right here.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what most animals, what do they do with their, if they give birth, if a mother dog gives birth or a mother kitten gives birth to a dead or a sick puppy or kitten, most of the time they eat it.
Yeah.
Some animals do, some animals don't. I had a rabbit long time ago, the very first rabbit that I had. Ate its baby that was born dead.
Yeah.
Because it was instinct. So, you know, was Paleo acting on that instinct of, you know, it was he knew that they were deceased. So
sense attracting predators.
You know, between animal instinct, survival, and you know, that loving companionship of an owner, it kind of all rolls into one. But you know, I don't know. All right, kiddo. Well, we are an hour and 4. I think this is the first time we've ever actually gotten through this long of a video.
Yeah.
But we'll probably have to wrap it up tomorrow now that I'm feeling better. Hopefully we can get to back to recording. We do still have to finish up the Dan Hennon video, which is probably a lot of repetitive crap. But today is
Finish
Friday,
up this one,
so
but yeah, we're getting there.
if you want to pick it up sometime tomorrow afternoon, we can, or we can take the weekend off and hop back next week. It just depends on
Okey-dokey.
whatever you want to do and whatever you have the time for. Just let me know.
Okie dokie. No
And
problem.
to everybody else, everybody, including the Justice Group, you are 100% more than welcome to hop in and show us your evidence. Show us your proof of innocence with the evidence. No opinion. No, we don't want your opinion. We want the facts and the evidence of his innocence. If you can bring that, you are 100% more than welcome to hop on here. So, anyways, dear, I'll let you get to Ben because he doesn't sound too
Okey-dokey.
happy.
Oh, he's having a giggle fit.
Oh, well, mine was over here yelling at me a minute ago. So. All right, well, you give him big hugs for me, and I'll talk
I
to you
will
over in the
do.
chat.
Okie
And
dokie.
everybody else,
No problem.
make sure you guys follow us on the Crowley Case Fact vs. Fiction on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you check out Deep State Granny on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe over here. And as always, do your research.
Yay!
Have a good day. Bye.